Hey guys, tonight we slip into the flour-dusted streets of 19th century Paris, where the air smells of warm bread and the clatter of wooden carts echoes through dawn's mist. You're a baker, apron tied tight, trudging toward a boulangerie under the watchful eye of the Parisian Bakers' Guild, a fussy ancient club that's been bossing bakers around since medieval times. Imagine the scene. Gas lamps flicker, casting shadows on cobblestones, and you're hauling a sack of rye flour while dodging stray cats. You probably won't survive this guild's ridiculous rules. Trust me, they're pettier than a modern HOA. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and local time in the comments. I'm curious where you're drifting off from tonight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing in a cramped Parisian alley, 1800s, where the Bakers' Guild holds sway like some flour-crusted mafia. This guild, born in the 1200s under King Louis IX, isn't just a club. It's a powerhouse dictating every loaf you bake. They've got rules for everything: how much your bread weighs, what time you fire up the oven, even how much flour dust you're allowed to sneeze into. Historians say the guild started to protect bakers from royal tax grabs, but by the 19th century, it's more about control than camaraderie. You're not just kneading dough, you're navigating a maze of bylaws older than the cobblestones under your boots. Now, here's a quirky tidbit. The guild demanded every baker swear an oath on a loaf of bread. Yes, a literal loaf, like it's some sacred relic. You're holding this crusty thing, promising to obey rules that feel like they were written by a sleep-deprived monk. Break the oath? You're fined, shamed, or worse, kicked out of the baking game. Picture yourself muttering vows to a rye loaf while your neighbours snicker. Historians still argue whether this oath was a genuine tradition, or just the guild flexing its ego to keep bakers in line. You step into the boulangerie, a dim room with stone walls and a creaky wooden counter. The guild's presence looms like a nosy landlord. You're not just baking, you're performing for inspectors who could fine you for a loaf that's an ounce too light. It's stressful, sure, but there's something cosy about the rhythm: kneading dough, the oven's warm glow, the faint hum of Paris waking up. Speaking of rhythm, ever try kneading dough to a lullaby? It's like a workout and a nap rolled into one. You're already yawning, aren't you? The guild's rules are strict, but they're also weirdly soothing, like a bedtime story you didn't ask for. You grab a sack of flour, coarse and gritty, and start measuring. The guild's got a rulebook thicker than a brioche, and you're expected to memorize it. One slip, like using the wrong grain blend, and you're in trouble. It's not all bad though. The guild's got your back if a customer tries to stiff you, which happens more than you'd like. Imagine some fancy Parisian in a top hat arguing your bread's too crusty. Good luck, buddy. The guild's got lawyers. Okay, maybe not lawyers, but they've got clout. You smirk, thinking how modern bakers would lose it over these rules. Ever try arguing with a barista about coffee grounds? Same vibe. As you mix the dough, the guild's history sinks in. They've been around for centuries, surviving wars, plagues, and even that time Parisians rioted over bread shortages. You're part of something bigger, even if it's a bit absurd. The guild's quirks, like banning bakers from working past midnight, make you chuckle. Who's baking at 3 a.m. anyway? Probably someone as sleepy as you feel right now. You pat the dough, set it to rise, and wonder what other bizarre rules await tomorrow's shift. You're up before dawn, the Paris sky still inky, stars fading over the Seine's gentle ripple. The boulangerie's wooden door creaks as you push it open, your boots scuffing on flour-dusted floorboards. The air's chilly, smelling of yeast and old wood, and you're already dreading the Bakers' Guild's ridiculous morning rules. You've got to knead dough under their watchful eye, following a checklist that feels like it was scribbled by a caffeinated bureaucrat. It's 1800s Paris and you're a baker, which means your day starts when everyone else is still dreaming of croissants. The guild's got this obsession with morning routines, rooted in a 14th century decree to ensure bread's ready for breakfast. Historians note that King Charles VI once demanded fresh loaves by sunrise, so bakers like you are stuck hauling flour sacks, while roosters are still snoozing. You grab a lump of dough, its texture cool and tacky, and start kneading on a worn oak table. The guild insists on exactly 100 kneads per loaf, no more, no less. Count one too many, and some guild busybody might fine you for overworking the dough. You roll your eyes, thinking modern bakers would probably stage a sit-in over this nonsense. Here's the quirky bit. The guild requires you to sing a specific chant while kneading, some old French ditty about blessing the wheat. You're mumbling it half-heartedly, voice barely above a whisper. Because who has the energy at 4 a.m? The lyrics are absurd. Something about grain spirits and hearth gods. You're pretty sure it's just a way to keep you awake, like a medieval energy drink. Historians still argue whether this chant was a religious holdover, or just the guild's way of making sure you didn't fall asleep mid-knead. Your hands work rhythmically, pressing and folding. The dough soft as a pillow under your palms. The boulangerie's quiet, save for the occasional clatter of a tin pan, or a distant horse cart rattling by. You're supposed to keep the workspace spotless. Guild rule number 472, probably. A speck of stray flour could land you a lecture from an inspector, with a moustache bigger than his ego. You smirk, imagining him measuring flour specks with a tiny ruler. Ever try cleaning a kitchen while half asleep? It's like herding cats during a nap. The guild's morning rules aren't just about bread, they're about control. You can't even light the oven until you've checked in with the guild's dawn patrol, a group of grumpy officials who stomp around verifying everyone's up. You picture them now, clutching their ledgers, sniffing for unapproved yeast. It's a hassle, but there's something oddly calming about the routine. The dough's warmth, the faint hum of the city waking up. It's like a lullaby you didn't expect. You shape the dough into rough rounds, knowing each one's got to pass the guild's picky standards. Speaking of standards, the guild's got a weird fixation on dough consistency. Too sticky, you're fined. Too dry, fined again. You're starting to think they just like collecting coins. You chuckle, picturing a guild treasurer swimming in a vault of baker's finds like some 19th century Scrooge McDuck. The dough's looking good though, and you're proud of it, even if the guild's rules make you feel like you're baking with one hand tied behind your back. As you set the loaves to rise, you wonder how many more bizarre regulations you'll bump into before the sun's fully up. You're back in the boulangerie, the morning light creeping through smudged windows, painting the flour-dusted counter in soft gold. Your hands are sticky with dough, and the faint yeast smell wraps around you like a warm blanket. But trouble's brewing. Literally. The Parisian Bakers Guild is obsessed with bread weight, and you're about to face their infamous scale checks. One underweight loaf, and you're slapped with a fine that could buy a week's worth of flour. It's the 1800s, and you're learning fast that baking in Paris is less about art and more about dodging guild penalties. Back in 1789, bread shortages sparked riots, and historians say the guild tightened its grip to prevent another flour-fueled uprising. Now, every loaf you bake has to hit an exact weight. Say, 1.5 pounds for a standard pain de campagne. You're weighing each dough ball on a creaky brass scale, praying it doesn't tip the wrong way. The guild's inspectors, with their starched coats and squinting eyes, roam the city like hawks, ready to pounce on any baker cutting corners. You're tempted to sneak a pebble into a loaf just to mess with them, but you'd rather not lose your shop. Here's the quirky part. Some bakers got creative, hiding tiny weights, like lead pellets, inside their loaves to cheat the scales. You're not that bold, but you've heard whispers of a guy down the street who got caught with a loaf full of marbles. The guild fined him enough to buy a horse, and now he's the punchline at every baker's tavern meetup. Historians still argue whether these cheating scandals were widespread or just tall tales spun by bored apprentices. You plop another loaf on the scale, holding your breath as the needle wobbles. It's close, maybe too close. You can almost hear the inspector's pen scratching your name in his ledger. The guild's got this whole system where they mark deficient bakers with a chalk X on their shop door. Humiliating? Sure. But you've seen worse. Like that baker who forgot the salt and had to eat his own bland bread in front of a jeering crowd. You chuckle, thinking modern bakers would probably just post a TikTok about it and call it a day. The oven's heat warms your back as you slide loaves in, the wood crackling softly. You're careful to follow the guild's exact baking times too long, and the crust too hard. Too short and it's doughy disaster. You're starting to feel like a tightrope walker, balancing flour, time, and guild rules. Ever try baking while someone's breathing down your neck? It's like cooking dinner with your mum critiquing your every stir. You smirk, picturing a guild inspector trying to survive a modern kitchen with Gordon Ramsay yelling in the background. As the loaves bake, you sweep the floor. Another guild rule because apparently a single crumb could bring chaos to Paris. The weight checks loom large, though. You've heard of bakers slipping extra dough to loyal customers to avoid trouble, but that's risky too. The guild's got spies, yes, spies, watching for any funny business. You're just trying to keep your head down, bake your bread, and maybe sneak a nap before the next inspector shows up. The rhythm of the boulangerie with its warm air and steady tasks is oddly soothing, even with the guild's nonsense hanging over you. You're elbow deep in flour, the boulangerie's air thick with the scent of rising dough and burning kindling. The morning's bustle has settled, but your nerves are still jangling from those weight checks. Remember that scale wobbling like it had a personal grudge? Now you're about to learn one of the Parisian Bakers Guild's strangest quirks, their secret handshake. A bizarre ritual that's half loyalty oath, half awkward dance. It's the 1800s, and you're a baker trying to prove you're one of the guild's inner circle, not just some flour-dusted outsider. Historians trace this handshake back to the 1600s, when guilds used secret signals to protect trade secrets from rival bakers. You're standing in the back room, a dim space lit by a single candle, facing a guild elder with a beard that could hide a baguette. He's teaching you the handshake, a double wrist twist, a thumb jab, and, get this, a pinky tap that feels like you're flirting with a loaf. You fumble through it, half laughing, because it's so absurd you're expecting a secret decoder ring next. The guild takes it seriously though. Mess up the sequence, and you're flagged as untrustworthy. Here's the quirky tidbit. The handshake ends with both bakers pretending to dust flour off their palms in a specific pattern, like some flowery high five. You're practicing it now, feeling like a kid playing spy, but the elder's deadpan stare says this is no joke. Historians still argue whether this ritual was about bonding, or just the guild's way of weeding out imposters who couldn't keep up with the choreography. You repeat the handshake, your hands clumsy, flour puffing into the air like tiny clouds. The elder grunts approval, but you're still paranoid you'll botch it at the next guild meeting. Picture yourself at a modern office party, trying to nail a secret handshake with your boss. Yeah, it's that level of cringe. You smirk, imagining a TikTok of bakers flubbing this ritual going viral. The candle flickers, casting shadows that make the elder's face look like it's judging your soul, not just your grip. The guild's obsession with loyalty doesn't stop at handshakes. You're expected to report any baker breaking rules, like that guy from the weight scandal who stuffed marbles in his loaves. Snitching feels wrong, but the guild's got a way of making you feel like you're betraying the bread itself if you don't. You're starting to see why bakers drink so much wine after work. Ever try keeping a secret while kneading dough? It's like holding in a laugh during a quiet meeting. Impossible. As you head back to the oven, the handshake's rhythm sticks in your head, like a catchy tune you can't shake. You're shaping loaves now, each one a little smoother, but the guild's presence lingers. You wonder what other odd rituals they've got up their sleeves. Probably something involving yeast and a solemn vow. The boulangerie's warmth wraps around you, the steady crackle of the fire almost lulling you to sleep. You catch yourself yawning, the handshake's quirks blending into the day's endless rules. At least the bread smells amazing, and for now, that's enough to keep you going. You're back in the boulangerie, the air heavy with the nutty scent of baking rye and a faint whiff of wood smoke. The morning's dough kneading and that awkward secret handshake, remember that flour-dusted pinky tap, are still buzzing in your head. Now, you're sweeping the floor, brooms scraping against stone, because the Parisian Bakers Guild has a bizarre fixation on flour dust. They've got rules about how much can float around, as if a stray speck could topple the French economy. It's the 1800s, and you're learning that baking in Paris means wrestling with regulations that feel like they were dreamt up by a fussy librarian. Historians point out that the guild's dust obsession kicked off in the early 1800s, after a flour explosion in a mill scared the city senseless. Turns out, flour dust can ignite like gunpowder under the right conditions. You're sweeping carefully, trying not to kick up a cloud that'll earn you a fine. The guild's rulebook says no more than a handful's worth of dust can settle on any surface. You're eyeing the counter, wondering if you need a ruler to measure dust piles. It's absurd, but you're not about to argue with an inspector who probably counts grains for fun. Here's the quirky bit. Bakers had to wear special cloth masks, not for health, but to keep dust from sticking to their faces, because the guild thought a flowery beard looked unprofessional. You're tying one on now, feeling like a bandit in a bad western, the cloth muffling your grumbles. Historians still argue whether these masks were about cleanliness, or just the guild's way of making bakers look like they were auditioning for a secret society. You sweep in slow arcs, the broom's bristles whispering against the floor. The guild's got spies. Yep, those same ones sniffing out loaf cheats. Who'll report you if the shop's too dusty. You're picturing one now, lurking outside, peering through the window like a flour-obsessed detective. Ever try cleaning while someone's watching? It's like doing dishes with your mum hovering, ready to point out a missed spot. You chuckle, imagining a modern baker posting an Instagram rant about dust quotas. The oven's heat warms your back, a cozy contrast to the chilly morning air seeping through the door. You're supposed to open the windows to ventilate the dust, but not so much that you let in street grime. Another guild rule, naturally. You're starting to think they just make this stuff up to keep you on your toes. Like, what's next? A law about how to sneeze properly? You smirk, picturing a guild official demonstrating the correct sneeze into a handkerchief. As you finish sweeping, you glance at the rising dough, its surface smooth and promising. The dust rules are a pain, but there's something soothing about the rhythm. Sweep, check, sweep again. The boulangerie feels like a little world of its own, all warmth and quiet clinks. Even with the guild's nonsense hanging over you, you tuck the broom away, hoping you've dodged the dust police for today, and turn back to your loaves, ready for whatever bizarre rule comes next. You're shaping dough in the boulangerie, the air warm with the scent of yeast and toasted wheat, your hands dusted white from hours of work. The guild's dust rules, remember that flowery mask you had to wear, are still making you roll your eyes. Now, you're moulding a loaf that's the early ancestor of the baguette. A long skinny thing the Parisian Bakers Guild calls a pain long. It's the 1800s, and every move you make is governed by their strict standards, right down to the exact length of your loaf, 2 feet, no more, no less. 1 inch off, and you're in for a fine or a stern lecture. Historians note that the baguette's predecessor emerged in Paris around the 1830s, when bakers started experimenting with leaner doughs for a crustier bite, though the guild kept a tight leash on innovation. You're stretching the dough carefully, feeling its springy tug. Knowing the guild's inspectors will measure each loaf like it's a royal decree, you're aiming for that perfect golden crust. But the guild's rulebook demands the dough's water content be precise. Too wet, and you're wasting resources. You're half tempted to splash extra water just to see if they'd notice, but you'd rather keep your coins. Here's the quirky tidbit. The guild insisted bakers name each loaf type after a saint, so your pain long is technically a Saint Honoré's rod. You're muttering the name under your breath, feeling like you're blessing the bread rather than baking it. Historians still argue whether this naming was a nod to Catholic tradition, or just the guild's way of making every loaf sound fancier than it was, like calling a cookie a Saint Biscuit today. You chuckle, imagining a modern bakery selling St. Muffin specials. Your hands move rhythmically, folding and shaping, the dough soft as a cloud under your fingers. The boulangerie's quiet, just the crackle of the oven and the distant clop of horses outside. You're picturing a guild inspector with a ruler, measuring your loaves like he's judging a dog show. Ever try baking under that kind of pressure? It's like cooking for a food critic who's also your math teacher. You smirk, thinking how a TikTok of this measuring nonsense would rack up views. Do we get drama, anyone? The guild standards don't just stop at length. They've got rules for crust thickness, crumb texture, even the number of slashes on top. 3, exactly, because 4 is apparently chaos. You're slashing the dough now, careful not to miscount, feeling like a painter with a very picky client. The guild claims these rules ensure uniform quality, but you suspect they just like bossing people around. You're starting to get the hang of it though, each loaf looking sharper than the last. The oven's heat wraps around you, a cosy hug despite the guild's meddling, and you slide the loaves in, hoping they'll pass muster. As the bread bakes, you lean against the counter, wiping sweat from your brow. The pain long is your pride and joy, even if the guild's rules make you want to sneak an extra slash just for rebellion. The boulangerie's rhythm, knead, shape, bake, is like a lullaby, pulling you into a calm focus. You're already yawning, the warmth and the work blending into a sleepy haze, but you've got to stay sharp for the next guild surprise. You're hunched over in the boulangerie, the oven's glow casting long shadows across the stone floor, the air thick with the toasty scent of your pain-long loaves, those proto-baguettes you shaped so carefully. The guild's obsession with measurements like that 3-slash rule still has you shaking your head. Now it's past sunset, and you're breaking one of their strictest laws, no baking after midnight. The Parisian Bakers Guild claims it's to keep bakers from disturbing the city's peace, but you're sneaking a batch of rolls because a tavern keeper down the street begged for extras. It's the 1800s, and you're playing rebel in the quietest way possible. Historians say this nighttime ban started in the 1700s to prevent fires, as unattended ovens were a real hazard in wooden-roofed Paris. You're tiptoeing around, keeping the oven low, the faint crackle of embers your only company. The guild's got night watchmen patrolling, ready to fine anyone caught baking past curfew. You're muffling every clank of your tin pans, feeling like a kid sneaking cookies while your parents sleep. One wrong move, and you're explaining yourself to a guild official with a ledger and a scowl. Here's the quirky bit. Bakers caught breaking the ban had to donate a loaf to the guild's midnight basket, a charity box for the poor. Nobody knows if the bread actually got there. You're sliding rolls into the oven, half expecting a knock at the door, wondering if your bribe loaf will be a crusty peace offering. Historians still argue whether this basket was a genuine act of charity, or just the guild's way of profiting off rule breakers' guilt. You need a fresh batch quietly, the dough soft under your palms, the rhythm soothing despite the risk. The boulangerie's dark, save for a single lantern flickering like it's in on your secret. Ever try cooking at night while everyone's asleep? It's like making midnight pancakes, but with higher stakes and worse lighting. You chuckle, picturing a modern baker live-streaming this curfew dodge with a hashtag like #midnight bread vibes. The guild's ban feels personal, like they don't trust you to handle a late-night oven without burning Paris down. You're extra careful, checking the fire, making sure no sparks escape. The rolls are small, round things. Painron, the guild calls them, meant for quick tavern snacks. You're tempted to eat one yourself, but the guild's got rules about sampling too. Apparently, snacking on your own bread is unprofessional. You roll your eyes, thinking how a modern chef would probably post a selfie with a roll and call it content. As the rolls bake, the smell fills the room, warm and buttery, almost lulling you into a doze. You're keeping one ear on the street, listening for the watchman's boots. The guild's got a knack for making you feel like a criminal for doing your job, but there's something thrilling about it too. You slide the rolls out, golden and perfect, and hide them in a basket under a cloth. The boulangerie's quiet hum, the soft glow, the secret baking. It's like a cozy conspiracy, and you're already half asleep dreaming of the next rule you might bend. You're back in the boulangerie. The midnight rolls, those sneaky pain rond you baked against the guild's curfew, still hidden under a cloth, their buttery scent teasing your nose. The lantern's dim glow dances on the walls, and you're wiping down the counter, trying to erase any evidence of your late-night baking rebellion. Now the Parisian Bakers Guild is throwing another curveball. You're about to endure their bizarre apprentice initiation, a ritual to prove you're worthy of joining their flour-dusted ranks. It's the 1800s, and you're standing in a chilly back room, nervous but ready to face whatever odd test they've cooked up. Historians note that guilds across Europe used initiations to bind members, and Paris bakers were no exception, with records from the 1700s describing ceremonies steeped in tradition. You're facing a guild elder, his apron starched to perfection, who's holding a wooden rolling pin like it's a scepter. The initiation involves kneading a perfect loaf, blindfolded. Yes, blindfolded, while reciting the guild's bread oath. You're fumbling with the dough, the cloth over your eyes smelling faintly of mildew, trying not to drop the whole lump on the floor. It's like a baking reality show with 0 cameras and all the pressure. Here's the quirky tidbit. The blindfold test ends with you tossing a pinch of flour into a bowl of water, supposedly to appease the grain spirits. You're doing it now, feeling ridiculous as you sprinkle flour like some amateur wizard. Historians still argue whether this was a nod to pagan roots, or just the guild's way of hazing newbies into submission. You're just glad nobody's filming your clumsy toss. Imagine that on YouTube with a caption like "Epic Bread Fail." Your hands work the dough, its texture cool and elastic, as you mutter the oath about honouring the guild's rules. The elder's watching, probably judging your kneading technique. Ever try cooking blindfolded? It's like chopping onions during a power outage. Pure chaos. You chuckle, picturing a modern chef attempting this for clout. Hashtags flying, #blind bread challenge. The room's quiet, save for the soft squish of dough and the elder's occasional grunt, which you're hoping means approval. The guild's initiation isn't just about baking skills. It's about loyalty. You're expected to swear off working for rival bakers, even those just across the Seine. The blindfold's off now, and you're shaping the loaf, praying it meets their picky standards. Too flat and you're out, too puffy and you're mocked. You're starting to see why bakers drink so much after these ordeals. The dough's looking decent though, and you slide it into the oven, the heat a familiar comfort against the guild's weird rituals. As the loaf bakes, you wipe sweat from your brow, the boulangerie's warmth wrapping you like a blanket. The elder nods, maybe impressed, maybe just tired. You're one step closer to being a full guild member, but the initiation's quirks linger in your mind. It's absurd, sure, but there's something soothing about the process. The dough's rhythm, the oven's hum, the faint promise of fresh bread. You're yawning already. The late hour and the guild's nonsense pulling you towards sleep, but you've got to stay sharp for whatever's next. You're in the boulangerie, the warm glow of the oven casting flickers across your flour-streaked apron. The memory of that blindfolded initiation, tossing flour like a wannabe sorcerer, still making you smirk. Your pain long loaves are cooling, their crusts crackling softly, But now you're caught in the Parisian Bakers Guild's next obsession, bread price wars. It's the 1800s, and you're haggling with customers over loaves priced to the guild's absurdly rigid standards, each coin you earn feeling like a small victory against their iron grip. The air smells of rye and tension, and you're bracing for a day of arguments over a few centimes. Historians point out that by the 1820s, the guild fixed bread prices to stabilise Paris's economy after years of shortages, ensuring no baker could undercut another. You're behind the counter, a chalkboard listing your pain de campagne at exactly 3 francs per loaf, no wiggle room, no discounts. A customer, some fussy merchant with a velvet coat, is grumbling that your price is highway robbery. You'd love to haggle, but the guild's rules are clear: deviate, and you're fined or worse, labelled a price traitor. You're biting your tongue, wishing you could toss in a free roll to shut him up. Here's the quirky bit. The guild required bakers to announce price changes by ringing a brass bell outside their shop, like they're town criers for bread. You're imagining yourself now clanging that bell while neighbours glare, probably thinking you're just showing off. Historians still argue whether this bell ringing was about transparency, or just the guild's way of making bakers look like performing monkeys. You're half tempted to ring it offbeat just to spice things up, but you'd rather not face another fine. You hand the merchant his loaf, his coins clinking heavily in your palm. The guild's price rules make every sale feel like a high-stakes chess move. Ever try bargaining at a farmer's market only to find out prices are set in stone? It's like that, but with more paperwork. You chuckle, picturing a modern baker tweeting about guild price drama with a crying emoji. The shop's busy now, customers shuffling in, each one testing your patience with complaints about the cost. The guild's not just watching prices, they're watching you. They're spies. Yep, those same ones from the midnight baking fiasco are probably lurking, ready to report if you slip a customer an extra crust. You're keeping your smile polite, but inside, you're dreaming of a world where you can set your own prices. The oven's hum is your only comfort. Its steady warmth like a hug in this chilly morning. You're tallying coins, each one a reminder of the guild's control, and you're starting to wonder if that merchant's right. Maybe 3 francs is a bit steep. As the day wears on, you're wiping down the counter, the rhythm of sales and complaints blending into a sleepy haze. The boulangerie's cosy, despite the guild's meddling, with its soft clinks of coins and the faint scent of fresh bread. You're yawning, the price wars draining you more than kneading ever did. You glance at the chalkboard, wondering what other bizarre guild rules are waiting to make your life harder. But for now, you're just glad to have survived another sale without a fine. You're behind the boulangerie's counter, the scent of fresh pain de campagne mingling with the faint tang of wood smoke. Your hands still tingling from haggling over those guild-fixed prices. Remember that merchant whining about 3 francs. Now, you're bracing for the Parisian Bakers Guild's next headache, the oven inspection. It's the 1800s, and you're sweating as guild officials with their clipboards and pinched faces are about to scrutinise your oven's heat like it's a suspect in a crime. The air's thick with tension, and you're hoping your fire's just right to avoid their dreaded fines. Historians note that oven inspections became a guild obsession in the early 1800s after a string of bakery fires blamed on poorly maintained hearths. You're poking at the logs, the flames crackling, trying to keep the temperature steady at the guild's mandated 400 degrees Fahrenheit. No thermometers, just your best guess and a prayer. The inspector, a wiry man with a monocle, is sniffing around, checking for improper embers. You're half expecting him to crawl into the oven himself, like some fairy tale witch inspecting her cauldron. You're keeping calm, but it's tough when one wrong spark could cost you a week's wages. Here's the quirky bit. The guild required bakers to mark their oven bricks with a chalk symbol, a crescent moon, to prove it was blessed for baking. You're sketching it now, feeling like you're in art class instead of a bakery, the chalk crumbling in your hand. Historians still argue whether this was a safety ritual or just the guild's way of making you jump through another hoop, like that blindfolded initiation nonsense. You're just glad nobody's watching you draw lopsided moons. Imagine that on Instagram with #bakeryrituals. The inspector's pacing, scribbling notes, and you're pretending to adjust the fire while sneaking glances at him. Ever try fixing something while your boss hovers? It's like tweaking your Wi-Fi with tech support breathing down your neck. You chuckle, picturing a modern baker filming this inspection for a YouTube rant. Guild guy hates my oven. The heat's steady though, and your loaves are baking evenly, their crusts turning golden. You're hoping that's enough to pass muster. The guild's rules don't stop at temperature. They've got standards for oven size, wood type, even the smell of the smoke. Apparently oak burns nobler than pine. You're rolling your eyes, thinking how you'd love to burn a pine log just to see if they'd notice. The inspector's still there, muttering about ember alignment, whatever that means. You're starting to suspect he's making it up as he goes, like a kid inventing rules for a game. The boulangerie's warmth is comforting, though, wrapping you in a cozy haze despite the inspector's glare. As you pull a loaf from the oven, its crust perfect. You catch the inspector nodding. Barely. Maybe you've dodged a fine this time. The rhythm of baking, the fire's soft crackle, it's all lulling you into a sleepy calm even with the guild's nonsense. You're yawning, the day's endless rules piling up like flour dust, but you're ready to face whatever quirky regulation comes next, as long as the bread keeps coming out right. You're in the boulangerie, the oven's heat still lingering on your skin from that nerve-wracking inspection. Those chalked crescent moons on the bricks are probably still mocking you. The air's rich with the scent of cooling pane long loaves, their crusts snapping as they settle. Now, you're carving a tiny symbol into each loaf, a mark unique to you, per the Parisian Bakers Guild's orders. It's the 1800s, and this baker's mark is like your signature, proof you're not some rogue passing off shoddy bread. You're etching a little wavy line, hoping it doesn't look too much like a squiggle. Historians say the baker's mark tradition dates back to the Middle Ages, when guilds used it to track who made what, especially after scandals like that marble-stuffed loaf fiasco. You're using a small knife, carefully slicing your mark into the dough before it bakes, each cut precise to avoid the guild's wrath. One sloppy mark and you're accused of impersonating another baker. Yes, bread identity theft is apparently a thing. You're picturing a guild official squinting at your loaf, comparing it to a sketch in their ledger like some flour-dusted detective. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some bakers got sneaky, carving marks that doubled as tiny insults, like a rival's initials with a slash through them. You're tempted to try it. Maybe etch a tiny frown for that inspector with the monocle, but you'd rather not risk a fine. Historians still argue whether these cheeky marks were common or just exaggerated tavern tales, but you're grinning at the thought of leaving a secret jab in a loaf. Your knife moves slowly, the dough yielding like soft clay. The boulangerie's quiet, just the faint hum of the cooling oven and a distant dog barking in the Parisian dusk. Ever try signing your work under pressure? It's like doodling your name on a test while the teacher looms. You chuckle, imagining a modern baker posting their loaf marks on TikTok with #breadart vibes. The guild's rules make it feel like you're signing a contract with every cut. The mark's purpose isn't just pride, it's accountability. If a customer finds a stone in their bread, the guild traces it back to you, and you're explaining yourself in a stuffy meeting. You're extra careful, double-checking each loaf, remembering that weight scandal where bakers got caught cheating. The guild's spies, those same ones sniffing out midnight bakers, are probably watching for sloppy marks too. You're starting to think they've got nothing better to do than haunt bakeries like flowery ghosts. As you finish carving, the loaves ready for baking, the boulangerie's warmth wraps around you, cozy despite the guild's meddling. The rhythm of cutting, the soft dough, the faint city sounds, it's all blending into a sleepy lullaby. You're yawning, the day's endless rules piling up, but there's something satisfying about leaving your mark, like a quiet rebellion against the guild's control. You slide the loaves into the oven, hoping your wavy line passes their picky standards, and brace for whatever bizarre rule comes next. You're in the boulangerie, the faint scent of your freshly baked pane long loaves, each with that wavy mark you carved so carefully, still lingering as you sweep crumbs from the counter. The guild's rules, like those pesky oven inspections, are starting to feel like a second shadow. Now you're stepping out into the bustling streets of 1800s Paris, where the Parisian Bakers Guild is hosting its annual Festival of Crumbs, a bread-themed celebration that's as peculiar as it sounds. You're clutching a basket of rolls, ready to join the chaos, the air buzzing with laughter and the clink of wine glasses. Historians note that the guild organised festivals like this in the 19th century to boost their public image, especially after bread riots made bakers look like villains. You're weaving through a crowded square, where bakers are parading with oversized loaves shaped like animals. A lion, a fish, even a lumpy elephant. Your job is to hand out free rolls to the crowd, a guild mandate to show their generosity. You're tossing rolls to kids, who grab them like they're gold, while dodging a drunk poet shouting about bread's noble soul. It's a circus, and you're the flour-dusted ringmaster. Here's the quirky bit. The festival ends with a crumb toss, where bakers fling handfuls of breadcrumbs into the air for good luck. Think confetti, but edible and messier. You're joining in, tossing crumbs skyward, watching them glitter in the lantern light like some absurd snowstorm. Historians still argue whether this was a genuine tradition, or just the guild's way of cleaning their shops while looking festive. You're laughing, imagining a modern food festival with chefs throwing cupcake crumbs for Instagram clout. The square's alive with music, fiddles and accordions blending with the chatter of Parisians. You're handing out rolls, your apron catching stray crumbs, feeling like you're in a parade from a fever dream. Ever try serving food to a rowdy crowd? It's like hosting a barbecue where everyone brought their own megaphone. You chuckle, picturing a YouTube vlog of this festival captioned "Bread Party Gone Wild." The guild's watching, of course, making sure you're smiling and not skimping on the freebies. Your rolls are a hit. Their crust's golden and crisp. But the guild's got rules even for this. Each roll has to be presentable, whatever that means. You're checking each one, half expecting an inspector to pop up with a ruler for crumb size. The festival's chaos is oddly soothing, though, the noise and warmth wrapping you like a blanket. You spot a rival baker across the square, showing off a loaf shaped like a swan. Show off. You're tempted to toss a crumb at him, but the guild would probably fine you for improper crumb dispersal. As the night winds down, you're sweeping up crumbs. Yes, another guild rule, because heaven forbid Paris gets too crumby. The festival's energy, the laughter, the absurd bread sculptures, is all lulling you into a cosy haze despite the guild's meddling. You're yawning, the day's whirlwind catching up, but you're already curious about what other weird guild events might be lurking on the horizon. You're back in the boulangerie, the echo of the festival of crumbs, those wild breadcrumb tosses still dancing in your mind, fading as you wipe down the counter, the scent of fresh rolls lingering. The Parisian Bakers Guild's quirky rules, like carving those wavy loaf marks, keep you on edge, but now you're facing a new puzzle. The croissant conundrum. It's the 1800s, and you're shaping buttery, flaky pastries that might be the croissant's early cousins, while the guild claims credit for their invention. The air's rich with the smell of melting butter, and you're wondering if you're baking history or just another guild myth. Historians trace the croissant's origins to the 1830s in Paris, with some crediting Austrian bakers for introducing laminated dough, though the guild loved boasting they perfected it. You're folding dough with layers of butter, each fold precise to meet the guild standards. Too few layers, and your pastry's deemed unworthy. You're working carefully, the dough smooth under your hands, knowing an inspector might taste test your batch. The guild's got a rule that every croissant shape must curve exactly like a crescent moon. Remember those chalked oven marks, or you're fined for aesthetic failure. Here's the quirky bit. The guild insisted bakers whisper "rise well" to the dough before baking, claiming it ensured a fluffier pastry. You're muttering it now, feeling like you're casting a spell on a lump of buttery dough, half laughing at the absurdity. Historians still argue whether this was a superstitious ritual or just the guild's way of making bakers look like pastry wizards. You're picturing a modern baker filming this for TikTok, captioned, "Talking to my croissants like they pay rent." Your hands move rhythmically, folding and rolling, the boulangerie's warmth wrapping you like a cozy shawl. The guild spies, those same ones sniffing out price cheats, are probably lurking, ready to report a misshapen crescent. Ever try baking something perfect while someone's judging? It's like decorating a cake during a live stream with chat roasting your every move. You chuckle, imagining a YouTube comment section tearing apart your croissant curves. Bro, that's a squiggle, not a crescent. The guild's claim to the croissant feels shaky. You've heard whispers of Viennese bakers bringing their kipfel to Paris, and the guild just slapped their name on it. You're shaping another crescent, the dough's buttery sheen catching the lantern light, and you're tempted to make one straight just to mess with them. The oven's hum, the soft crackle of logs, it's all soothing, pulling you into a sleepy rhythm despite the guild's nonsense. You slide the pastries in, hoping they puff up perfectly, or at least enough to avoid a lecture. As the croissants bake, their golden aroma fills the room, a promise of flaky goodness. You're yawning, the day's endless rules, price wars, oven checks, now this, blending into a warm haze. The boulangerie's quiet, just the faint clink of your tools and the city's distant murmur. You're starting to wonder if the guild's croissant obsession is worth the hassle, but for now you're just glad to be baking something that smells like a dream. You're in the boulangerie, the buttery scent of those crescent-shaped pastries, your maybe croissants, still wafting from the oven. Their golden curves a small victory against the Parisian Bakers Guild's picky rules. The memory of whispering "rise well" to the dough like some pastry poet has you stifling a grin. Now, you're hearing whispers of a different kind. Rumours of women bakers sneaking into the guild's male-dominated world. It's the 1800s, and you're catching hushed stories of defiant women kneading dough in secret, defying the guild's strict no-ladies policy. The air's warm, thick with yeast and rebellion. Historians note that Parisian guilds, including bakers, were men-only clubs through much of the 19th century, with women often relegated to selling bread or helping unofficially. You're chatting with a fellow baker, a grizzled guy with flour in his beard, who mentions a widow down the street running a secret bakery from her kitchen. She's baking pan de campagne as good as yours, but the guild would lose it if they knew. You're picturing her now, kneading under candlelight, dodging inspectors like a flour-dusted spy. You're tempted to slip her some yeast as a quiet salute. Here's the quirky bit. Women caught baking were forced to donate their loaves to the guild's charity basket. Yep, that same midnight basket from your curfew-breaking escapade. You're imagining a stack of perfectly baked loaves, confiscated just because a woman made them, and it's both infuriating and absurd. Historians still argue whether these women were rare rebels or part of a larger underground baking scene the guild pretended didn't exist. You're chuckling, picturing a modern true crime podcast titled The Secret Bakers of Paris. You're shaping dough, the rhythm steady, the boulangerie's stone walls glowing faintly in the lantern light. The guild's rules feel heavier now, knowing they're shutting out half the city's talent. Ever try working in a place where the rules feel stacked against someone? It's like being the only one not invited to the office potluck. You smirk, imagining a TikTok of these women bakers sneaking loaves past the guild with #BreadRebels vibes. The guild's spies, those same ones hunting for misshapen croissants, are probably sniffing out these women too. You're keeping your ears open, catching snippets of gossip about a baker named Marie who's outsmarting the inspectors. You're tempted to track her down, maybe learn a trick or two, but you've got your own loaves to worry about. The guild's got a rule that every baker must sign their work. Remember your wavy mark. And you're wondering if Marie's carving her own secret symbol. As you slide loaves into the oven, the heat wraps you like a warm blanket. The crackle of logs a soothing hum. The stories of women bakers linger, a quiet spark in the guild's rigid world. You're yawning, the day's work and whispered rebellions blending into a sleepy haze. The boulangerie's cosy, despite the guild's nonsense, and you're already curious about what other secrets, baked or otherwise, are hiding in Paris's flowery corners. You're in the boulangerie, the warm glow of the oven casting soft shadows, the scent of fresh pain de campagne mingling with the faint tang of yeast. Those whispered stories of women bakers, Marie and her secret loaves, still linger, a quiet rebellion against the Parisian Bakers Guild's iron rules. Now, you're facing another guild headache, their bizarre tax tricks. It's the 1800s, and you're dodging levies on everything from yeast to salt, each tax feeling like a personal jab from the guild's ledger-obsessed bureaucrats. The air's thick with flour dust, and you're counting coins with a wary eye. Historians say the guild imposed these taxes in the early 1800s to fund their operations, claiming it was for community welfare after bread riots shook Paris. You're tallying your supplies, noting the guild's cut on every ounce of yeast, 2 centimes per pound, non-negotiable. Salt's even worse. It's taxed like it's gold dust, and you're measuring it with a spoon to avoid extra costs. You're half tempted to hide some under the counter, but the guild's spies, those same ones hunting women bakers, would probably sniff it out like bloodhounds. Here's the quirky bit. The guild demanded bakers pay a loaf tax by delivering 1 free bread to their headquarters weekly, supposedly for quality checks. You're wrapping a loaf now, grumbling as you tie it with twine, knowing it's probably feeding some guild officials lunch. Historians still argue whether this was a legit inspection or just a fancy way to score free snacks. You're chuckling, picturing a modern baker ranting on YouTube about tax loaves with a hashtag like # bread extortion. Your hands move over the counter, sorting coins and supplies, the boulangerie's rhythm steady despite the guild's meddling. Ever try budgeting when someone's skimming off the top? It's like splitting a pizza with a roommate who takes half the toppings. You smirk, imagining a TikTok of you sneaking salt past the guild with a dramatic slow-mo. The oven's hum, the soft clink of coins. It's all soothing, even with the tax stress piling up. The guild's tax rules don't just hit your wallet. They're a mental game. You're calculating every pinch of yeast, wondering if you can stretch it without ruining the dough. You're thinking of that widow baker Marie, and how she's probably dodging these taxes too. Her secret kitchen a fortress of thrift. The guild's got a rule that every tax payment must be recorded in triplicate, because one ledger's not enough apparently. You're scribbling numbers, feeling like a monk copying manuscripts, your eyelids drooping from the monotony. As you pack the tax loaf for delivery, the boulangerie's warmth wraps you like a soft blanket. The fire's crackle a gentle lullaby. You're yawning, the weight of coins and guild rules blending into a sleepy fog. The thought of those taxes gnaws at you, but there's something calming about the routine. Measure, count, bake. You're already wondering what other sneaky guild fees might pop up, but for now, you're just glad to have enough salt to keep the bread tasting right. You're in the boulangerie, the faint glow of the lantern casting wobbly shadows, the smell of cooling loaves mixing with the sting of salt you've been rationing to dodge those guild taxes. Remember that tax loaf you grudgingly wrapped? The Parisian Bakers Guild's rules are piling up like flour sacks, and now you're tangled in something shadier, bread smuggling. It's the 1800s, and you're sneaking loaves to customers desperate for cheaper bread, bypassing the guild's price controls and their nosy spies. The air's tense, thick with yeast and secrecy as you plot your next move. Historians note that by the mid-19th century, some Parisian bakers turned to smuggling to undercut the guild's fixed prices, especially after economic slumps made bread unaffordable for many. You're wrapping a batch of pain-ron rolls in a cloth, ready to slip them to a tavern keeper who'll sell them on the cheap. The guild's price rules, those 3-franc loaf mandates, are strangling your profits, so you're hiding rolls in a basket under old sacks, hoping the night watchmen don't catch you. It's like sneaking snacks past a strict teacher, only with higher stakes. Here's the quirky bit. Smugglers use secret codes, tapping twice on a door to signal a bread drop, like some flowery Morse code. You're practicing it now, tapping softly on the counter, feeling like a spy in a bad novel. Historians still argue whether this was a widespread rebellion or just a few desperate bakers dodging fines. You're chuckling, imagining a modern baker filming this for TikTok captioned, "Bread smuggler aesthetic with sneaky music." You're moving quietly, the boulangerie's stone floor creaking under your boots, the oven's fading heat a faint comfort. Ever try sneaking something past a bossy rule? It's like slipping an extra cookie from the jar while your mum's not looking. You smirk, picturing a YouTube vlog of your late-night bread handoff, complete with dramatic zooms. The guild's spies, those same ones sniffing out tax cheats, are out there, probably lurking in the shadows, ready to pounce if your basket's too heavy. You're bundling the rolls tighter, your heart thumping as you hear a cart rattle outside. Friend or foe? The guild's got a rule that smuggled bread gets confiscated and burned, which feels like a crime against carbs. You're thinking of Marie, that widow baker, and wondering if she's smuggling too, her secret kitchen a hub of rebellion. The tavern keeper's waiting in an alley, and you're planning to slip out the back door hoping the moon's dim enough to hide you. The boulangerie's quiet, just the soft hum of cooling ovens and your own quick breaths. The smuggling's risky, but there's something thrilling about outsmarting the guild, like a game where the prize is a few extra coins. You're yawning, the late hour and the stress pulling you into a sleepy haze, but the adrenaline keeps you sharp. You grab the basket, ready to make your move, the warmth of the rolls a small comfort against the guild's endless rules. You're clutching that basket of smuggled pain-rond rolls, their warmth seeping through the cloth, the boulangerie's dim lantern barely lighting your path as you slip back from the alley drop-off. The thrill of dodging the Parisian Bakers Guild's price rules, remember that sneaky double-tap code, still has your heart racing. Now, you're catching whispers of the guild's creepiest trick, their spy network. It's the 1800s, and you're realizing the guild's got eyes everywhere, informants sniffing out every rule breaker, from smugglers to midnight bakers. The air's thick with yeast and paranoia, and you're watching your step. Historians say the guild ramped up surveillance in the 1820s, hiring locals to report on bakers who skirted rules, especially after smuggling spiked. You're back at the counter, kneading dough, but your eyes keep darting to the window, where shadows shift in the gaslit street. The guild's spies aren't cloaked villains, just neighbours, delivery boys, even customers, paid a few coins to tattle. You're picturing that chatty tavern keeper you just handed rolls to, wondering if he's secretly scribbling your name for the guild. It's like living in a small town where everyone's a snitch. Here's the quirky bit. Spies had to mark their reports with a tiny bread sketch, like a loaf emoji, to prove they were legit. You're imagining one now, a crude doodle of a baguette on a scrap of paper, and it's so absurd you almost laugh out loud. Historians still argue whether these sketches were a security measure, or just the guild's way of making espionage feel like a craft project. You're chuckling, picturing a modern baker posting one of these doodles on Instagram with hashtag #breadspyvibes. Your hands work the dough, its rhythm steady, but you're hyper-aware of every creak in the boulangerie. Ever try working while feeling watched? It's like cooking dinner with a security camera zoomed in on your spatula. You smirk, imagining a YouTube vlog titled Baking Under Surveillance. The guild's spies are probably noting if your apron's too flurry or if you're kneading too fast, because apparently there's a rule for that too. You're keeping your movements slow, hoping to look innocent. The oven's soft crackle is your only comfort, its warmth wrapping you like a blanket against the chilly night. You're thinking of Marie, that secret woman baker, and how she must dodge these spies daily. Her kitchen a fortress of stealth. The guild's got a rule that suspicious bakers get a warning loaf left on their doorstep. A plain roll with a red ribbon, like a passive-aggressive gift. You're praying you don't find one tomorrow. The boulangerie's cosy, despite the creeping dread, the dough's softness pulling you into a sleepy rhythm. You shape the loaves, each one perfect to avoid giving the spies ammo. The guild's network feels like a net tightening around you, but there's something oddly calming about the work. Knead, shape, repeat. You're yawning, the late hour and the weight of being watched blending into a drowsy haze. You glance at the window one last time, hoping the shadows stay empty, and brace for whatever the guild's spies might dig up next. You're in the boulangerie, the faint glow of the oven casting a warm halo, the scent of fresh dough clinging to your apron as you knead, still jittery from the thought of those guild spies, bread sketches and all, lurking outside. The Parisian Bakers Guild's grip from smuggler hunts to tax loaves is relentless, and now you're diving into their weirdest rule yet, forbidden bread shapes. It's the 1800s, and you're secretly shaping a loaf that's banned for reasons nobody fully explains. Your hands trembling with the thrill of breaking the rules. The air's thick with yeast and a hint of defiance. Historians note that the guild banned certain loaf shapes in the early 1800s, claiming they were frivolous or offended public morals, especially after religious groups complained about heretical designs. You're moulding a loaf into a star shape, strictly verboten because it supposedly mimics pagan symbols. The guild wants plain rounds or those pain long rods, nothing fancy. You're working fast, hiding the star under a cloth, knowing an inspector could barge in and fine you for this flowery rebellion. It's like sneaking a doodle in a strict teacher's notebook. Here's the quirky bit. One banned shape was a twisted loaf called a serpent's coil, rumoured to spook customers into thinking it summoned bad luck. You're tempted to try it, picturing a snaky bread that'd make the guild clutch their pearls. Historians still argue whether these bans were about religious control or just the guild's way of keeping bakers from getting too creative. You're chuckling, imagining a modern baker posting a serpent loaf on TikTok with the hashtag Forbidden Bread Challenge, racking up views. Your hands move quickly, smoothing the star's edges, the dough soft and pliable. The boulangerie's quiet, just the oven's soft crackle and the distant clatter of a passing cart. Ever try breaking a silly rule just because it's there? It's like drawing on a no graffiti wall, heart pounding with guilty fun. You smirk, picturing a YouTube vlog of you unveiling this star loaf with dramatic music. Banned bread reveal. The guild's spies, those same ones with their loaf doodles, are probably out there, ready to rat you out. You're hiding the loaf behind a stack of flour sacks, praying it bakes before anyone notices. The guild's got a rule that forbidden shapes get destroyed, crumbled into that charity basket from your midnight baking days. You're thinking of Marie, the secret woman baker, and wondering if she's crafting her own outlawed loaves, maybe a heart or a crescent to stick it to the guild. The oven's heat wraps you, cozy despite the risk, and you're already planning how to sneak this star to a trusted customer. As you slide the loaf in, the boulangerie's rhythm, knead, shape, hide, lulls you into a sleepy calm. You're yawning, the thrill of rebellion mixing with the late hour. The guild's rules are heavy weight. The star loaf's baking, its forbidden shape a secret between you and the oven. You're hoping it comes out golden, a quiet victory against the guild's nonsense, and you're ready for whatever bizarre regulation they'll throw at you next. You're in the boulangerie, the oven's faint glow warming your hands as you check on that forbidden star loaf, its rebellious shape hidden from the Parisian Bakers Guild's prying spies, those loaf-sketching snitches still haunting your thoughts. The air's thick with the nutty scent of baking bread, and you're sweeping crumbs to cover your tracks. Now, you're hearing tales of the Great Flour Heist, a wild story of flour thefts shaking Paris, with bakers like you caught in the chaos. It's the 1800s, and you're wondering if your own flour sacks are safe from sticky-fingered thieves. Historians say flour theft spiked in the 1840s, when grain shortages drove prices sky-high, making flour a target for black market dealers. You're eyeing your stockpile, a dozen heavy sacks stacked in the corner, each one worth more than a week's wages. Word on the street is that thieves broke into a bakery near the Seine, hauling off 10 sacks in one night, leaving only a mocking note. Thanks for the dust. You're double-checking your locks, feeling like a shopkeeper in a heist movie, half expecting a bandit to pop through the window. Here's the quirky bit. The guild required bakers to mark their flour sacks with a red chalk X to deter thieves, claiming it was a protective charm. You're scribbling one now, the chalk gritty in your hand, wondering if it's magic or just another guild prank. Historians still argue whether this was a superstition or a clever way to track stolen goods. You're chuckling, picturing a modern baker spray painting their flour bags and posting it on Instagram with #FlourSecurityVibes. You're moving sacks to a safer spot, the boulangerie's stone floor cool under your boots. Ever try guarding something valuable while half asleep? It's like hiding your snacks from a sneaky roommate, but with higher stakes. You smirk, imagining a YouTube vlog titled "Protecting My Flour from 1800s Thieves." The guild's spies are probably out there, watching for thefts, but also ready to fine you if your sacks aren't marked properly. You're starting to think they're in cahoots with the thieves just to keep you paranoid. The guild's got a rule that stolen flour must be reported within a day, or you're blamed for negligence. You're picturing Marie, that secret woman baker, guarding her own stash with a rolling pin like a weapon. The thought of thieves sneaking through Paris, flour sacks slung over their shoulders, feels like a story from a tavern song. The boulangerie's warmth, the oven's soft hum, it's all soothing, despite the heist rumours swirling. You're yawning, the late hour and the weight of guarding your flour pulling you into a drowsy haze. As you stack the last sack, you check the star loaf, golden and perfect, a secret triumph. The heist tales make every creak in the shop sound like a thief's footsteps, but the rhythm of baking, sweep, check, bake, keeps you grounded. You're hoping your chalked X keeps the bandits at bay, and you're already bracing for whatever wild guild rule comes next in this flour-dusted drama. You're in the boulangerie, the warm flicker of the oven casting soft shadows, the scent of that forbidden star loaf, safely baked and hidden, mixing with the dusty tang of flour sacks you've marked with those guild-mandated X's to fend off thieves. The great flour heist rumours still have you glancing at the door, half expecting a bandit to cart off your supplies. Now, you're roped into the Parisian Bakers Guild's charity loaf programme, handing out free bread to the poor under their quirky mandates. It's the 1800s, and you're wrapping loaves for distribution, the air heavy with yeast and a faint sense of duty. Historians note that the guild started charity loaves in the late 1700s to quell public anger after bread riots, a way to show bakers weren't just hoarding flour for profit. You're tying twine around a stack of pain de campagne, each loaf destined for a church-run soup kitchen, but the guild's rules make it a chore. Every charity loaf must be stamped with a special mark, a tiny cross, not your wavy signature, to show it's blessed for the needy. You're pressing the stamp into the dough, feeling like a monk sealing a holy relic, hoping you don't smudge it and earn a fine. Here's the quirky bit. The guild required bakers to deliver these loaves while chanting a short prayer for abundance, supposedly to bless the recipients. You're muttering it now, stumbling over the words, feeling like you're auditioning for a medieval choir. Historians still argue whether this was genuine piety, or just the guild's way of making charity look like a spectacle. You're chuckling, imagining a modern baker live-streaming this on YouTube captioned "praying for bread points" with a laughing emoji. Your hands move steadily, wrapping loaves, the boulangerie's stone walls glowing faintly in the lantern light. Ever try doing a good deed under strict rules? It's like volunteering at a soup kitchen but being told exactly how to ladle the soup. You smirk, picturing a TikTok of you chanting over loaves with #CharityLoafVibes. The guild's spies, those same ones sniffing out smuggled rolls, are probably watching to ensure you don't sneak an extra loaf for yourself. You're thinking of Marie, that secret woman baker, and wondering if she's slipping charity loaves into her underground operation, dodging the guild's rules. The guild's got a mandate that every baker donates exactly 10 loaves a week. No more, no less, because apparently even charity has quotas. You're counting carefully, the twine scratching your fingers, the rhythm of wrapping and stamping pulling you into a cozy haze, the oven's soft crackle, the faint clink of your tools. It's all soothing, despite the guild's micromanaging. As you stack the loaves for delivery, you feel a quiet pride, even if the guild's making it complicated. The boulangerie's warmth wraps you like a blanket, the charity work a small light in the guild's endless rules. You're yawning, the late hour and the weight of twine and prayers blending into a sleepy fog. You're hoping the church folks appreciate the bread, and you're already bracing for whatever odd guild task comes next in this flour-dusted world. You're in the boulangerie, the soft glow of the lantern flickering, the scent of those charity loaves, stamped with tiny crosses, still lingering as you tidy the counter, the guild's endless rules weighing heavier than a sack of flour. The great flour heist tales and spy networks have you jumpy, but now you're facing something wilder. The Parisian Bakers Guild's dueling code. It's the 1800s, and you're witnessing bakers settle disputes not with words, but with dough rollers in a bizarre ritual that's half fight, half farce. The air's thick with yeast and the faint buzz of rivalry as you brace for a showdown. Historians note that in the early 1800s, Parisian guilds sometimes resolved conflicts with staged duels to avoid legal feuds, though bakers favoured theatrical displays over bloodshed. You're outside in a quiet alley, watching two bakers face off over a stolen customer list, each clutching a wooden rolling pin like it's a sword. The guild's rule is clear: 3 swings, no hitting the face, and the loser buys the winner a cask of wine. You're stifling a laugh, picturing them thwacking each other like kids with pool noodles, the crowd of apprentices cheering. Here's the quirky bit. Before the duel, both bakers have to knead a peace loaf together, which is then split between them. Talk about breaking bread. You're watching them knead now, grumbling but following the guild's script, the dough lumpy from their half-hearted effort. Historians still argue whether this was a genuine truce ritual, or just the guild's way of turning fights into free entertainment. You're chuckling, imagining a modern baker filming this for TikTok. Captioned dough duel drama with slow-mo swings. The alley's dim, lit by a single gas lamp, the air chilly against your flour-dusted apron. Ever try settling an argument with a silly contest? It's like challenging your co-worker to a stapler throwing match over a parking spot. You smirk, picturing a YouTube vlog titled Baker's Brawl with Rolling Pins. The guild spies, those same ones sniffing out forbidden star loaves, are probably here, ensuring nobody breaks the no face shots rule. You're tempted to cheer, but you keep quiet, not wanting to draw attention. The duel's over fast. One baker lands a solid thwack on the other's shoulder, and wine's promised. The peace loaf's baked, split and eaten, sealing the deal. You're back in the boulangerie, kneading your own dough, the duel's absurdity lingering like a good tavern story. The guild's got rules for everything, even fights, and you're wondering if you'd ever swing a rolling pin over a bad batch. The oven's warmth, the dough's soft give, it's all soothing, pulling you into a sleepy rhythm despite the guild's nonsense. You're yawning, the late hour and the day's wild tales, duels, spies, heists, blending into a drowsy haze. The boulangerie's cosy, its stone walls a quiet shield from the guild's chaos. You're shaping loaves, each one a small defiance against their rules, and you're already curious about what other bizarre guild antics might pop up next in this flour-dusted world. You're back in the boulangerie, the faint crackle of the oven mixing with the yeasty scent of fresh dough, the memory of that rolling pin duel, bakers thwacking each other like flowery knights, still making you grin. The Parisian Bakers Guild's endless rules, from charity loaves to spy sketches, are piling up, and now you're navigating their fire safety fiasco. It's the 1800s, and you're scrambling to follow absurd regulations meant to keep your bakery from burning Paris to a crisp. The air's warm, tinged with wood smoke, as you check the oven with a wary eye. Historians note that after a devastating bakery fire in 1812, the guild rolled out strict fire safety rules, blaming bakers for every stray spark. You're poking at the oven's logs, ensuring they're stacked just right. Guild rules demand no more than 6 logs at a time, spaced exactly 2 inches apart. You're measuring with a stick, feeling like a carpenter instead of a baker, knowing one misplaced log could earn you a fine or a lecture. You're picturing an inspector with a ruler, squinting at your fire like it's a math problem. Here's the quirky bit. The guild required bakers to keep a bucket of water painted red by the oven, supposedly to ward off fire spirits. You're filling one now, splashing paint on the handle, wondering if the guild thinks flames are scared of bad interior decorating. Historians still argue whether this was a superstitious holdover, or just the guild's way of making bakers jump through another hoop, like those chalked oven moons. You're chuckling, imagining a modern baker posting this red bucket on Instagram with hashtag fire spirit repellent vibes. The boulangerie's cozy, the oven's heat wrapping you like a blanket, but you're hyper-aware of every crackle. Ever try following safety rules that sound made up? It's like installing a smoke alarm that only works if you sing to it. You smirk, picturing a YouTube vlog titled Baking Without Burning Paris Down. The guild's spies, those same ones sniffing out dueling bakers, are probably lurking, ready to report if your bucket's not red enough or your logs are too close. You're thinking of Marie, that secret woman baker, and how she must dodge these rules in her hidden kitchen, probably with a plain bucket and a scoff. The guild's got a rule that fire safety checks happen weekly, with inspectors sniffing for excess smoke, whatever that means. You're keeping the oven low, the logs burning steady, hoping to avoid their scrutiny. The rhythm of checking, stacking and baking pulls you into a sleepy haze, the boulangerie's warmth a comfort despite the guild's nonsense. As you slide a batch of pain long into the oven, you double-check the red bucket, half expecting it to glow with magic. The fire's under control, but the guild's rules make you feel like you're babysitting a dragon. You're yawning, the late hour and the endless regulations blending into a drowsy fog, but you're ready for whatever quirky guild demand comes next in this flour-dusted world. You're in the boulangerie, the oven's gentle hum blending with the scent of fresh pain long loaves, their crusts cooling as you mop sweat from your brow, still chuckling over that red-painted bucket meant to scare off fire spirits. The Parisian Bakers Guild's fire safety rules are just one more layer of their flowery madness, piling on top of duels and smuggled rolls. Now you're roped into their bread tasting trials, a bizarre contest where you judge loaves for flavour, texture, and because it's the guild, moral quality. It's the 1800s, and you're standing in a stuffy guild hall surrounded by bakers and their prized breads, the air thick with yeast and judgment. Historians note that the guild held tasting trials in the mid-19th century to enforce quality standards, especially after complaints about bland or underbaked loaves sparked public grumbling. You're at a long oak table, slicing into a rival baker's pain de campagne, its crumbs springy under your knife. The guild's rules say you must score each loaf on taste, crust and honesty, whatever that means. You're nibbling a piece, trying to look serious while an elder with a waxed moustache glares, probably judging your chewing technique. You're half tempted to fake a dramatic swoon just to lighten the mood. Here's the quirky bit. The guild required judges to rinse their mouths with watered-down wine between bites, claiming it cleansed the palate for truth. You're sipping the stuff now, grimacing at its vinegary tang, feeling like you're gargling a bad metaphor. Historians still argue whether this was about fairness or just the guild's excuse to sneak wine into work. You're chuckling, picturing a modern baker filming this for TikToks captioned, "Wine and bread judging" with a winking emoji. The guild hall's noisy, filled with bakers muttering about their recipes, the air warm despite the open windows. Ever try judging food in front of its maker? It's like rating your friend's cooking while they stare daggers. You smirk, imagining a YouTube vlog titled Baking Contest Chaos. The guild's spies, those same ones sniffing out forbidden star loaves, are here, ensuring nobody bribes the judges with extra crusts. You're scoring a loaf low because it's dense as a brick, hoping its baker doesn't challenge you to a rolling pin duel later. You're thinking of Marie, that secret woman baker, and wondering if she's sneaking her loaves into these trials under a fake name. The guild's got a rule that winning loaves get a gold ribbon, while losers have to donate theirs to the charity basket. Yep, that same one from your midnight baking days. You're tasting another loaf, its flavour nutty but too salty, and you're scribbling notes, feeling like a food critic with a flowery quill. The rhythm of slicing, tasting and sipping pulls you into a cosy haze, despite the guild's pompous rules. As you finish judging, the guild hall's bustle fades, the warmth of bread and wine lingering. You're yawning, the late hour and the endless tasting blending into a sleepy fog. The guild's trials are absurd, but there's something soothing about the process. Bite, sip, score. You're hoping your own loaves hold up next time, and you're already bracing for whatever wild guild scheme comes next in this bread-obsessed world. You're back in the boulangerie, the faint tang of that vinegary wine from the bread-tasting trials still lingering on your tongue. The guild hall's stuffy air replaced by the familiar warmth of your oven and the scent of cooling pain de campagne. The Parisian Bakers Guild's endless quirks, tasting contests, red buckets, spy sketches, have you dizzy, but now you're feeling a shift. It's the 1800s, and the guild's grip is loosening as revolutions and new ideas sweep Paris. You're kneading dough, sensing the tide turning, the air heavy with yeast and change. Historians note that by the late 1840s, guilds across France began to wane, weakened by economic reforms and uprisings like the 1848 Revolution, which pushed for freer markets. You're hearing whispers in the bakery, bakers grumbling about the guild's taxes, those pesky levies on yeast and salt you've been dodging. The guild's rules, once ironclad, feel flimsier now, like a crust that's gone soft. You're shaping loaves, wondering if you'll soon set your own prices or bake a forbidden star loaf without fear of spies sniffing around. Here's the quirky bit. As the guild's power faded, some bakers started leaving tiny farewell marks on their loaves. A single dot, like a full stop to the guild's reign. You're carving one now, a small poke in the dough, feeling like a rebel with a butter knife. Historians still argue whether these marks were deliberate protests or just bakers getting sloppy as the guild lost clout. You're chuckling, picturing a modern baker posting a dotted loaf on Instagram with hashtag guild goodbye vibes. The boulangerie's quiet, the ovens hum softer as you work, the rhythm of kneading pulling you into a cozy haze. Ever feel a change coming but still have to finish the job? It's like quitting a bad gig but still clocking in for one last shift. You smirk, imagining a YouTube vlog titled Baking Through the Guild's Downfall. The guild's spies, those loaf-sketching snitches, seem less threatening now, their ledgers gathering dust as Paris buzzes with talk of reform. You're thinking of Marie, that secret woman baker, and how she might finally bake openly if the guild crumbles. The guild's still got rules, like those 3 slashes on your pane long, but they're enforced with less zeal. You're tempted to add a 4th slash, just to test the waters, but you stick to the script for now. The oven's warmth wraps you, the crackle of logs a soothing lullaby, and you're starting to feel like you're baking for yourself, not just the guild's whims. As you slide loaves into the oven, the boulangerie feels lighter, like a weight's lifting. You're yawning, the late hour and the sense of change blending into a sleepy fog. The guild's decline is a quiet promise of freedom, but you're still kneading, still baking, caught in the rhythm of flour and fire. You're hoping the next day brings fewer rules, and you're ready for whatever's left of the guild's fading antics in this flour-dusted world. You're in the boulangerie, the oven's dying embers casting a faint glow, the scent of your final pane-long loaves, each with that tiny farewell dot you sneaked in, filling the air as you sweep the counter. The Parisian Bakers Guild's fading power, with its crumbling rules and spies, feels like a distant hum, like the city's pulse slowing as night settles over 1800s Paris. Tonight you're baking one last loaf, a quiet farewell to the guild's reign. Your hands moving through dough with a mix of habit and hope. The air's soft, heavy with yeast and the promise of change. Historians say the guild's collapse in the 1850s, sealed by Napoleon III's reforms, freed bakers to innovate, paving the way for modern Parisian bakeries. You're shaping this loaf, a simple round, feeling the weight of centuries lift. The guild's old rules, those taxes, band shapes and tasting trials, seem like stories now, fading like the chalked X's on your flour sacks. You're picturing Marie, that secret woman baker, maybe opening her own shop soon, no longer hiding from spies. The dough's smooth under your palms, a canvas for a new era. Here's the quirky bit. Some bakers mark their last guild-era loaf with a single sesame seed, a nod to freedom. You're pressing one into your loaf now, grinning at the small rebellion, like signing a letter with a flourish. Historians still argue whether this was a coordinated act or just bakers being sentimental. You're chuckling, imagining a modern baker tweeting a sesame-studded loaf with hashtag guild-over-party vibes. The boulangerie's quiet, the oven's crackle barely a whisper, the rhythm of shaping and baking lulling you into a gentle haze. Ever finish a long job with a mix of relief and nostalgia? It's like packing up after a tough project, knowing you're done but missing the grind. You smirk, picturing a YouTube vlog titled Last Loaf Before Freedom. The guild's spies are gone, their ledgers forgotten, and you're baking for yourself now, not their rulebook. You slide the loaf into the oven, its sesame seed glinting like a tiny star. The boulangerie's warmth wraps you, cozy and calm, the city's distant sounds fading. You're thinking of all the guild's quirks, midnight bands, rolling pin duels, wine-soaked tastings, and how they shaped your days. The loaf bakes, its crust turning golden, a quiet end to a flour-dusted era. You're yawning, the late hour pulling you into a sleepy fog, ready to close this chapter. And now, as the oven's glow softens, the boulangerie settles into a hush, the scent of your final loaf drifting like a warm memory. You lean against the counter, the world slowing, Paris's cobblestone streets quiet beyond the walls. The guild's rules, once heavy as a flour sack, are slipping away, leaving only the rhythm of your breath, the gentle crackle of cooling bread. Picture yourself now, sinking into the warmth, the day's work done, the loaf a small triumph. Let the city's hum fade, the stars above Paris twinkle softly, carrying you toward rest. Close your eyes, let the boulangerie's coziness cradle you, and drift into a dream where the bread rises perfectly, no rules required, Sleep well, Baker. You've earned it. Now we are started how Inuit seamstresses perfected, so you're in a karmak, a low sodden stone shelter, the lamp's flame flickering as you sew caribou hide with a bone needle. Inuit seamstresses, historians say, were the backbone of survival in the Arctic, crafting clothing that could withstand temperatures dropping to -40. Your hands move slowly, piercing the tough hide, pulling sinew thread through tiny holes. The guild's rules from that Parisian baker's tale? Nothing like that here. Just tradition, passed down through generations of women who knew a loose stitch could mean frostbite. You're learning fast, though, each stitch a small victory against the cold. Here's the quirky bit. Some seamstresses chewed the hides to soften them, a trick that sounds gross but works like magic. You're not chewing yet, but you're tempted, watching an elder work her jaw like it's a workout. Historians still argue whether this was just practical or a ritual to bond with the animal spirit. You're chuckling, picturing a modern tailor trying to chew leather for a TikTok trend. #ArcticDIY. Anyone? The lamp's glow is soft, the camp quiet except for the wind's low moan outside. You're stitching a parka, its hood lined with fox fur, designed to trap heat like a personal furnace. The elders guide you, their hands steady, showing you how to angle the needle for a tight seam. It's slow work, but there's something soothing about it. The rhythm of pull, pierce, pull again. Ever try sewing while your fingers are half frozen? It's like threading a needle during a snowstorm, but you're getting the hang of it. The hide's texture, rough yet pliable, feels alive under your hands, like it's whispering stories of the caribou it came from. The camp's community hums around you. Kids giggling, hunters sharpening tools. You're part of something bigger, a web of survival where your stitches keep everyone warm. You're thinking of those Parisian bakers, dodging guild spies, and how your work here feels freer, tied to necessity, not rules. The cold's brutal, but the karmak's cozy. The lamps heat a small sun. You're yawning already, the steady sewing pulling you into a calm haze, but you've got to keep stitching. Lives depend on it. The Arctic's waiting, and your needle's just getting started. You're crouched in the karmak, the seal oil lamp casting a warm flicker across the caribou hide in your hands, its coarse texture a reminder of the Arctic's harsh demands. The rhythm of stitching from that first parka, remember that fox fur hood? Still hums in your fingers, but now you're diving deeper into why caribou hides are the gold standard for Inuit parkas. It's the 1800s, and you're surrounded by piles of furs, the air sharp with the scent of tanned leather and the distant howl of wind across the tundra. Your needle moves steadily, each stitch a shield against the cold. Historians say caribou hides were prized by Inuit communities for their unique balance of warmth and breathability, a fact backed by centuries of survival in sub-zero climates. You're handling a fresh hide now, its hair's short and dense, perfect for trapping heat without weighing you down. Unlike seal fur, which is slicker, caribou has a hollow core in each hair, acting like tiny insulation tubes. You're marvelling at it, running your fingers over the pelt, feeling its lightness. The elders nod, their eyes sharp, teaching you to choose hides from autumn kills. Thicker, warmer, better for winter parkas. Here's the quirky bit. Some seamstresses swore by singing to the hide while preparing it, claiming it made the leather more pliable. You're humming a low tune now, feeling a bit silly, but the hide does seem softer. Maybe it's the rhythm, maybe it's just your imagination. Historians still argue whether this was a practical trick or a way to honour the caribou spirit. You're chuckling, picturing a modern seamstress posting a video of this on Instagram with #SingingStitchesVibes. Your hands work the hide, scraping away stray bits with a stone tool. The karmak's warmth a cosy bubble against the Arctic chill. Ever try prepping materials in a freezing room? It's like chopping veggies in a walk-in freezer but with more fur. You smirk, imagining a YouTube vlog titled Caribou Hide Prep Arctic Edition. The elders are watching, guiding you to cut the hide along its natural grain. Any mistake, and the parka won't fit right, leaving someone shivering on the tundra. You're thinking of those Parisian bakers, dodging guild taxes, and how your work here feels rawer, tied to survival, not coin. The caribou hide's texture, rough yet yielding, is like a puzzle you're solving with every slice. The lamp's glow softens the karmak's edges, the wind outside a distant lullaby. You're yawning, the steady scrape and stitch pulling you into a sleepy haze, but you've got to keep going. Parkas don't make themselves. The elders' quiet chatter, the faint crackle of the lamp, it's all weaving a calm rhythm, and you're already curious about what other secrets these hides hold. You're still in the karmak, the the seal oil lamp's soft glow warming your hands as you smooth out a caribou hide, its hollow hairs, those tiny insulation tubes you marvelled at, still fresh in your mind. The Arctic wind hums outside, a low drone, while the scent of tanned leather fills the air. Now you're threading sinew, the tough, stringy lifeline that holds Inuit garments together, learning why it's the secret to durable Arctic fashion. It's the 1800s, and you're pulling a thin strip of sinew through a hide, your fingers steady but aching from the cold. Historians say sinew, made from animal tendons, was the Inuit seamstress's go-to thread, stronger and more flexible than any plant-based fibre in the Arctic. You're working with caribou sinew today, dried and split into fine strands, its texture slick yet grippy. The elders show you how to twist it just right, making it tough enough to survive blizzards. You're threading it through a bone needle, marvelling at how it doesn't snap under pressure, unlike the flimsy cotton threads you've heard traders brag about. It's like nature's own super glue, and you're grateful for every strand. Here's the quirky bit. Some seamstresses soaked sinew in seal oil before sewing, claiming it made stitches waterproof. You're dipping a strand now, the oil's fishy tang making you wrinkle your nose, but it glides through the hide like butter. Historians still argue whether this was just practical or a ritual to bless the garment against storms. You're chuckling, picturing a modern tailor trying this on TikTok captioned, "oily thread hack," with a winking emoji. Your hands move in a slow rhythm, pierce, pull, tighten, the Karmak's warmth a cosy shield against the tundra's bite. Ever try sewing with something that smells like a fish market? It's like crafting in a seafood restaurant, but you're getting used to it. You smirk, imagining a YouTube vlog titled Sinew Sewing Arctic Smell Edition. The elders are watching, nodding as you keep the stitches even, each one a tiny promise of warmth for whoever wears this parka. You're thinking of those Parisian bakers, dodging guild spies, and how their rules feel worlds away from this practical magic. The sinew's strength is humbling, tying you to the caribou, the land, the community. The guild had their loaf marks, but here, your stitches are your signature, invisible but vital. The lamps flicker, the soft scrape of sinew through hide, it's all pulling you into a sleepy rhythm. You're yawning, the cold and the focus blending into a drowsy haze, but you've got to keep threading. Lives depend on these seams. The Karmak's quiet hum, the elders' low chatter, it's a lullaby, and you're already curious about the next tool in this Arctic craft. You're huddled in the Karmak, the seal oil lamp's glow dancing across the caribou hide you're stitching, the sinew thread, still faintly fishy from that seal oil dip, sliding smoothly through your fingers. The Arctic wind howls outside, rattling the sod walls, while the scent of leather and oil fills the space. Now you're carving a bone needle, a tiny tool that's the backbone of Inuit sewing, its sharp point the key to precise stitches that keep the cold at bay. It's the 1800s, and you're shaping a sliver of caribou bone, your hands steady despite the chill. Historians say Inuit seamstresses crafted needles from animal bones. Caribou, seal, even whale, for centuries, their durability unmatched in the Arctic's harsh conditions. You're using a sharp stone to whittle the bone, scraping it into a fine point, the texture smooth but tough. The elders guide you, showing how to drill a tiny eye for the sinew thread, a task that demands patience. One slip and the needle's ruined, leaving you to start over. You're focusing hard, the bone's faint scent mixing with the Karmak's warmth, picturing the parka this needle will help create. Here's the quirky bit. Some seamstresses name their needles, believing they held a bit of the animal's spirit. You're whispering sharp star to yours, half joking, but it feels right, like naming a trusty pen. Historians still argue whether this was a practical habit to track tools or a way to honour the animal's sacrifice. You're chuckling, imagining a modern seamstress posting her named needle on Instagram with hashtag bone needle vibes. Your hands scrape and shape, the bone yielding slowly, the Karmak's lamp casting soft shadows. Ever try crafting something tiny in freezing cold? It's like assembling a model ship with numb fingers, but you're getting the hang of it. You smirk, picturing a YouTube vlog titled Carving Needles in the Arctic. The elders nod, their own needles flashing as they sew, a reminder you're part of a long chain of craft. Those Parisian bakers, with their guild rules, seem worlds away. Your needle's your own, no inspector's ledger to mark it. The needle's almost done, its point sharp enough to pierce hide without snagging. You're testing it, pricking your finger lightly, wincing but proud. The guild had their loaf marks, but here, your needle's your mark, a quiet tool tying you to the tundra's rhythm, the karmak's cozy, the lamp's hum and the elder's soft chatter pulling you into a sleepy haze. You're yawning, the cold and the carving blending into a drowsy fog, but you've got to finish. Parkas need stitching, the bones smooth under your fingers, and you're already wondering what other tools these seamstresses mastered to conquer the Arctic. You're in the karmak, the seal oil lamps flicker casting soft shadows, your newly carved sharp star needle, still faintly warm from shaping, clutched in your hand, its bones smooth against your skin. The Arctic wind moans outside, the scent of caribou hide and sinew thread grounding you in this cosy shelter. Now, you're crafting seal fur boots, or kamiks, their sleek waterproof seams a masterpiece of Inuit ingenuity. It's the 1800s, and you're stitching seal hide, its glossy texture a stark contrast to the rough caribou you've been working with, each stitch a barrier against the icy slush of the tundra. Historians note that seal fur was a staple for Inuit footwear, valued for its water-repellent qualities, with kamiks often lasting through months of harsh Arctic travel. You're cutting the hide carefully, following an elder's pattern, ensuring the seams overlap just right to keep water out. The guild's rules from that Parisian baker's tale seem like a fever dream here. No inspectors, just the tundra's unforgiving cold demanding perfection. You're threading sinew through your bone needle, pulling tight, the seal's oily sheen catching the lamp's light like a dark mirror. Here's the quirky bit. Some seamstresses added a single decorative stitch, a tiny zigzag, to guide the wearer's spirit on safe journeys. You're trying it now, your needle dancing in a zigzag, feeling like you're weaving a small spell. Historians still argue whether this was a spiritual ritual, or just a way to flaunt skill. You're chuckling, picturing a modern designer posting these zigzags on TikTok, with number sign Arctic couture vibes. The elders smile, their own kamiks adorned with subtle patterns, a nod to tradition. Your hands move steadily, piercing the thick hide, the karmak's warmth a haven against the biting cold outside. Ever try sewing something that's half slippery, half tough? It's like stitching a wet leather jacket in a snowstorm. You smirk, imagining a YouTube vlog titled Seal Fur Boot Struggles. The seal hide's slick, but you're learning its quirks, guided by the elders' quiet tips. You're thinking of those Parisian bakers, dodging spies, and how your work here feels rawer, tied to survival, not coin. Each stitch is a promise. Dry feet, warm toes, a hunter's safe return. The kamiks take shape, their soles double-layered for extra strength, the fur soft against your fingers. You're picturing the wearer trudging through snow, relying on your seams to keep out the slush. The lamp's hum, the soft scrape of sinew, it's all pulling you into a sleepy rhythm, the Arctic's harshness fading in the karmak's glow. You're yawning, the cold and the focus blending into a drowsy haze, but you've got to keep stitching. Lives depend on these boots. The elders chatter, the faint crackle of the lamp, it's a lullaby, and you're already curious about the community behind this craft. You're in the karmak. The seal oil lamps glow, softening the edges of the seal fur kamiks you're stitching. Their sleek soles, double-layered for strength, still warm under your hands from the last tug of sinew. The Arctic wind hums outside, a low growl, while the scent of leather and oil fills the air. Now you're joining a circle of Inuit women, their needles flashing as they sew, sharing stories and laughter that make the cold feel distant. It's the 1800s, and you're part of a sewing circle, a warm hub of community where Arctic fashion is born through chatter and skill. Historians say Inuit sewing circles were vital social spaces, where women not only crafted clothing but passed down knowledge, stories and survival tips across generations. You're sitting cross-legged on a caribou hide, your sharp star needle-piercing seal fur, surrounded by women whose hands move like they're dancing. They're talking about a recent hunt, a child's first steps, and the best way to stitch a parka hood, each story weaving you tighter into the group. The guild's rules from that Parisian baker's tale? Nothing like that here, just shared wisdom, no ledgers or spies. Here's the quirky bit. Some women tossed a small bone bead into the circle's centre, believing it brought good stitches to everyone. You're adding yours now, a tiny carved bead clinking against others, feeling like you're in a crafting ritual. Historians still argue whether this was a luck charm or just a way to keep the circle lively. You're chuckling, picturing a modern sewing group posting this on Instagram with #BeadTossVibes. Your needle moves in rhythm with the group's chatter, the karmak's warmth wrapping you like a blanket. Ever try crafting with friends swapping stories? It's like a book club where everyone's knitting, but with higher stakes. You smirk, imagining a YouTube vlog titled Arctic Sewing Circle Shenanigans. The women's laughter, soft and warm, makes the work feel lighter, though your fingers ache from the tough hide. You're thinking of those Parisian bakers, dodging price wars, and how this circle feels freer, tied to community, not coin. One elder, her face lined with years of stitching, shows you a trick, doubling the sinew for extra strength. You're trying it, the threads slick but sturdy, your kamiks taking shape. The group's stories drift to myths, tales of spirits in the snow, and you're half listening, half focused on your stitches. The lamps flicker, the soft clink of beads. It's all pulling you into a sleepy rhythm. You're yawning, the cold outside and the warmth within blending into a drowsy haze. But you've got to keep sewing. Community depends on it. The circles hum, the elders' voices. It's a lullaby, and you're already curious about what other crafts these women will share. You're nestled in the karmak, the seal oil lamp's soft flicker blending with the chatter of the sewing circle. Their laughter, warm as the caribou hides you're all stitching, still echoing in your ears. The kamiks you're working on, with that sneaky zigzag stitch for safe journeys, are nearly done, their seal fur gleaming. Now you're perfecting these boots, adding intricate decorative patterns that make them more than just footwear. They're Arctic art. It's the 1800s, and you're learning how Inuit seamstresses turned kamiks into masterpieces, the air thick with the scent of leather and the hum of shared craft. Historians note that Inuit kamiks were often adorned with patterns, not just for beauty but to signal family or community ties, with designs passed down through generations. You're stitching a delicate line of triangles along the kamik's cuff, using dyed sinew, red from crushed berries, the elders say. Each triangle must be even, or the pattern loses its meaning, like a story with a missing page. You're focusing hard, your sharp star needle moving carefully. The karmak's warmth a cozy shield against the tundra's bite outside. Here's the quirky bit. Some seamstresses hid a single secret stitch in their patterns, a tiny mark only they knew, like a signature for luck. You're adding one now, a slight twist in the sinew, barely visible, feeling like a spy leaving a code. Historians still argue whether this was a personal touch or a way to ward off bad spirits. You're chuckling, picturing a modern designer posting their secret stitch on TikTok, with hashtag hidden kamik code vibes. Your hands move in a slow dance, threading dyed sinew, the karmak's lamp casting shadows that make your triangles glow. Ever try adding flair to a project under pressure? It's like decorating a cake while everyone watches, but with freezing fingers. You smirk, imagining a YouTube vlog titled Arctic Boot Bling. The sewing circle's still buzzing, women swapping tips on dye mixes, their needles flashing like tiny stars. You're thinking of those Parisian bakers, with their guild's loaf marks, and how your patterns here feel freer, tied to family, not rules. An elder leans over, showing you how to angle the triangles for a snowflake effect. You're copying her, your stitch is tighter now, the kamiks transforming into something beautiful. The guild had their bread trials, but here, your work's judged by the circle's nods, not ledgers. The lamps hum, the soft scrape of sinew, it's pulling you into a sleepy rhythm, the Arctic's cold a distant memory. You're yawning, the focus and the circle's warmth blending into a drowsy haze. But you've got to finish. These kamiks carry stories. The karmak's cozy, the elders chatter a lullaby, and you're already wondering what other designs you'll learn next. You're still in the karmak, the seal oil lamps flicker, casting a warm glow over the kamiks you're stitching. They're snowflake-patterned cuffs, complete with that sneaky, secret stitch, gleaming like Arctic jewels. The sewing circle's chatter hums around you, a cozy contrast to the icy wind rattling outside. Now you're working with whalebone, using it to stiffen a parka's hood, a trick that makes Inuit coats sturdy enough to face blizzards. It's the 1800s, and you're shaping a thin strip of bone, its smooth texture a new challenge in your seamstress toolkit, the air thick with leather and the faint salt of the sea. Historians say whalebone was a prized material for Inuit seamstresses, valued for its flexibility and strength, often harvested from beached whales by coastal communities. You're cutting a strip from a larger piece, the bone's pale sheen catching the lamp's light. It's weight light but firm. The elders guide you, showing how to sew it into the parka's hood to keep its shape against howling winds. You're threading sinew through tiny holes you've drilled, each stitch precise, knowing a loose one could let the cold sneak in. It's like building a tiny scaffold for warmth, and you're marvelling at the bone's strength. Here's the quirky bit. Some seamstresses carved a small notch in the whalebone, believing it thanked the whale for its gift. You're adding one now, a tiny groove with your stone knife, feeling like you're leaving a note for the sea. Historians still argue whether this was a spiritual gesture or just a way to mark quality work. You're chuckling, picturing a modern tailor posting this notched bone on Instagram with #whalebonethanks vibes. Your hands move carefully, sewing the bone into the hood, the karmak's warmth wrapping you like a soft shawl. Ever try working with a material that's half bone, half art? It's like crafting jewellery in a freezer, but with higher stakes. You smirk, imagining a YouTube vlog titled Whalebone Parker Hacks. The sewing circle's lively, women sharing stories of whale hunts, their needles glinting as they work. You're thinking of those Parisian bakers, dodging guild spies, and how your whalebone here feels freer, tied to survival, not rules. The parka's taking shape, its hood now rigid yet flexible, perfect for a hunter facing the tundra. You're picturing it shielding someone from frost, your stitches a quiet promise. The guild had their loaf taxes, but here, your work's judged by the wearer's warmth, not a ledger. The lamp's hum, the soft scrape of sinew, it's pulling you into a sleepy rhythm, the Arctic's chill fading in the karmak's glow. You're yawning, the focus and the circle's warmth blending into a drowsy haze, but you've got to keep stitching. Lives depend on it. The elders chatter, the bones smooth feel, it's a lullaby, and you're already curious about what other materials you'll master next. You're still crouched in the karmak, the seal oil lamp's glow dancing across the parka you're stitching, its whalebone stiffened hood, complete with that little notched thank you, feeling solid under your fingers. The sewing circle's chatter hums softly, the Arctic wind a distant growl outside while the scent of leather and sea salt lingers. Now you're trading sewing tips with women from neighbouring Inuit groups, their techniques adding new flair to your Arctic fashion. It's the 1800s and you're sharing a trick for tighter kamek seams, the air warm with camaraderie and the clink of bone needles. Historians note that Inuit communities across the Arctic, from Greenland to Nunavut, often traded knowledge during seasonal gatherings, blending styles and skills to improve clothing for survival. You're sitting with a woman from a coastal group, her hands showing you how to double-stitch seal fur for extra waterproofing. Her technique uses shorter sinew threads, a twist you hadn't tried, and you're copying her now, your sharp star needle moving faster. The exchange feels like a gift, each tip a thread tying communities together across the tundra's vast snowfields. Here's the quirky bit. Some seamstresses swapped tiny bone charms during these trades, believing they carried the giver's skill. You're handed one now, a carved fish no bigger than your thumb, and you offer a bead in return, feeling like you're in a crafty barter market. Historians still argue whether these charms were tokens of friendship or thought to hold actual sewing magic. You're chuckling, picturing a modern crafter posting this fish charm on TikTok with #Arctic skill swap vibes. Your hands work the seal fur, testing the double stitch. The karmak's warmth, a cozy shield against the icy gusts outside. Ever try learning a new trick while everyone's watching? It's like picking up a dance move at a party, but with freezing fingers. You smirk, imagining a YouTube vlog titled Inuit Sewing Swap Shenanigans. The circle's buzzing, women from different camps sharing stories of storms and hunts, their needles flashing like tiny sparks. You're thinking of those Parisian bakers, bound by guild rules, and how this open exchange feels freer, tied to survival, not ledgers. The coastal woman's technique is working. Your kamek seems tighter, almost invisible. You're picturing the wearer trudging through slush, their feet dry thanks to your new skill. The guild had their bread trials, but here, your work's judged by the circle's nods and the wearer's warmth, the lamp's flicker, the soft scrape of sinew. It's pulling you into a sleepy rhythm, the Arctic's cold a faint memory. You're yawning, the focus and the circle's warmth blending into a drowsy haze. But you've got to keep stitching. Community depends on it. The fish charm rests by your side, a small reminder of shared craft, and you're already curious about what other tips you'll pick up next. You're still in the karmak, the seal oil lamp's soft glow flickering over the karmaks you're stitching, their double-stitched seams, learned from that coastal woman's trade, feeling tight and proud under your fingers. The fish charm from the sewing circle swap sits nearby, a tiny token of shared skill, while the Arctic wind hums outside, carrying the scent of snow and leather. Now, you're hearing tales of magical garments, myths whispered among Inuit seamstresses that claim certain parkas can ward off the cold like a charm. It's the 1800s, and you're listening wide-eyed, your needle pausing as the stories weave through the karmak's warmth. Historians note that Inuit oral traditions often tied clothing to spiritual protection, with stories of garments blessed to shield wearers from Arctic spirits or brutal winters. You're sitting with the sewing circle, an elder spinning a tale about a parka sewn under a full moon, said to keep its wearer warm even in a blizzard's heart. You're stitching a caribou hide, half believing the story, wondering if your own stitches carry a bit of magic. The guild's rules from that Parisian baker's tale feel like a distant joke here. No ledgers, just stories that make the cold seem less fierce. Here's the quirky bit. Some seamstresses added a single white fox hair to a parka's hem, believing it tied the garment to the aurora's light. You're threading one now, its delicate strand glinting in the lamp's glow, feeling like you're weaving a fairy tale into the fur. Historians still argue whether this was a spiritual ritual or just a way to mark a special garment. You're chuckling, picturing a modern designer posting this fox hair trick on Instagram with number Aurora Parker Magic vibes. Your hands move slowly, the sinew sliding through the hide, the Carmack's warmth wrapping you like a soft blanket. Ever hear a story that makes you question your work? It's like hearing a recipe might summon good luck, but you still follow it. You smirk, imagining a YouTube vlog titled Sewing Arctic Magic. The circle's quiet now, the elder's voice low and rhythmic, her tale of a hunter saved by a blessed parka pulling you in. You're thinking of those Parisian bakers, dodging spies, and how these myths feel freer, tied to survival and spirit, not coin. You're picturing the parka's wearer trudging through snow, maybe feeling that fox hair's luck. The guild had their loaf marks, but here, your stitches carry stories, not just function. The lamp's hum, the soft chatter, it's all lulling you into a sleepy rhythm, the Arctic's chill fading in the Carmack's glow. You're yawning, the myths and the sewing blending into a drowsy haze, but you've got to keep stitching. Magic or not, warmth matters. The elder's tale ends, leaving you wondering if your parka might just hold a spark of something special, and you're already curious about the next craft in this Arctic world. You're in the Carmack, the seal oil lamp's gentle flicker casting shadows over the parka you're stitching. That single white fox hair, your nod to those magical garment myths, glinting faintly in the hem. The elder's tale of a blizzard-defying parka still hums in your mind, mixing with the Arctic wind's low moan outside and the scent of leather and oil. Now you're tanning hides, learning the traditional Inuit methods that turn raw pelts into soft, workable material for Arctic fashion. It's the 1800s, and you're scraping a caribou hide, your hands gritty with effort, the Carmack's warmth a cosy haven against the tundra's bite. Historians say Inuit tanning was a meticulous process, often done by women, using tools like stone scrapers and natural oils to soften hides for clothing. You're working a hide stretched over a wooden frame, scraping away fat with a curved stone, the texture slimy but yielding. The elders guide you, showing how to rub seal fat into the hide to make it pliable, a task that smells fishy but feels like alchemy. You're spreading the fat, your fingers slick, knowing this hide will become a parka to keep someone warm through a polar night. Here's the quirky bit. Some seamstresses sprinkled a pinch of snow on the hide during tanning, believing it purified the leather for better stitching. You're trying it now, tossing a handful of snow, watching it melt into the hide like a tiny ritual. Historians still argue whether this was a practical step to clean the pelt, or a spiritual nod to the Arctic's power. You're chuckling, picturing a modern leather worker posting this snow trick on TikTok with hashtag tundra tanning vibes. Your hands move in slow arcs, scraping and rubbing, the Carmack's lamp casting a soft glow on the hide's surface. Ever try prepping materials that smell like a fishing dock? It's like marinating meat in a freezer, but you're getting the hang of it. You smirk, imagining a YouTube vlog titled Arctic Hide Tanning Chaos. The sewing circles nearby, their chatter about hunts and patterns a steady hum, their own hides stretched tight. You're thinking of those Parisian bakers, dodging guild taxes, and how this tanning feels rawer, tied to survival, not coin. The hide softening, its texture turning from stiff to supple, a small victory. You're picturing the parka it'll become, maybe with a fox hair for luck. The guild had their loaf trials, but here, your work's judged by the hide's smoothness, not a ledger. The lamp's flicker, the soft scrape of stone, it's pulling you into a sleepy rhythm. The Arctic's cold, a distant memory. You're yawning, the effort and the Carmack's warmth blending into a drowsy haze, but you've got to keep scraping. Parkas need soft hides. The elder's quiet tips, the faint crackle of the lamp, it's a lullaby, and you're already curious about what other skills you'll learn next. You're in the Kermac, the seal oil lamp's warm glow flickering over the caribou hide you've just tanned, its supple texture softened by that snowy sprinkle and seal fat, smooth under your fingers. The Arctic wind howls outside, a distant reminder of why your work matters, while the scent of leather and oil lingers. Now you're stitching miniature parkas for Inuit kids, tiny versions of the adult garments, each seam a lesson in precision to keep little ones warm. It's the 1800s, and you're shaping a child's parka, your sharp star needle moving carefully, the Kermac's coziness wrapping you like a blanket. Historians note that Inuit seamstresses crafted children's clothing with the same care as adult wear, ensuring even the youngest could survive Arctic winters, with designs often mimicking family patterns. You're cutting a small caribou hide, its size almost comical compared to the massive pelts you've handled. The elders guide you, showing how to scale down the parka's hood for a toddler's head, keeping it snug without overwhelming their tiny frame. You're threading sinew, each stitch tight, picturing a kid toddling through snow, safe in your work. Here's the quirky bit. Some seamstresses sewed a single bright bead into a child's parka, believing it called joy to the wearer. You're adding one now, a red bead glinting in the lamp's light, feeling like you're gifting a bit of sunshine. Historians still argue whether this was a playful tradition or a way to mark family ties. You're chuckling, picturing a modern mom posting this beaded parka on Instagram with #ArcticKidStyleVibes. Your hands move delicately, the tiny parka taking shape, its fur soft as a whisper. Ever try crafting something for a kid who won't sit still? It's like knitting a sweater for a puppy, but with higher stakes. You smirk, imagining a YouTube vlog titled Mini Parka Madness. The sewing circles nearby, women sharing stories of their own kids, their needles flashing as they work. You're thinking of those Parisian bakers, bound by guild rules, and how this work feels freer, tied to family, not coin. The parka's hood is tricky, too big, and it flops, too small, and it pinches. You're adjusting, guided by an elder's nod, her own tiny parka a perfect model. The guild had their bread trials, but here, your work's judged by a child's warmth, not a ledger. The lamp's hum, the soft scrape of sinew, it's pulling you into a sleepy rhythm, the Arctic's chill fading in the Kermac's glow. You're yawning, the focus and the circle's warmth blending into a drowsy haze, but you've got to keep stitching. Kids need warmth too. The bead sparkles, a tiny promise of joy, and you're already curious about what other crafts you'll tackle next. You're in the Kermac, the seal oil lamp's soft glow warming the tiny parka you're stitching. Its red bead, your joyful little charm, catching the light like a spark in the fur. The sewing circle's gentle hum, stories of kids and hunts, blends with the Arctic wind's faint moan outside, the scent of leather and sinew grounding you. Now you're experimenting with metal needles, a new tool brought by traders. Their sharp glint a strange contrast to your trusty, sharp star bone needle. It's the 1800s, and you're adapting to these foreign tools, the Kermac's warmth a cosy bubble against the tundra's bite. Historians note that by the mid-19th century, European traders introduced metal needles to Inuit communities, offering precision but challenging traditional methods honed over centuries. You're holding a steel needle, its cold surface unfamiliar, testing it on a scrap of caribou hide. It pierces faster than bone, but the elders warn it can snap in the cold, unlike your reliable bone tools. You're threading sinew, the metal's sharpness making quick work, but you're cautious. Break this, and you're back to carving bone. You're thinking of those Parisian bakers, dodging guild rules, and how this shift feels freer, tied to choice, not mandates. Here's the quirky bit. Some seamstresses warmed metal needles over the lamp, believing it tamed their foreign spirit. You're holding yours near the flame now, the steel glinting, feeling like you're coaxing it to behave. Historians still argue whether this was practical, to prevent brittleness, or a way to blend new tools with old beliefs. You're chuckling, picturing a modern crafter posting this warming trick on TikTok with #MetalNeedleMagicVibes. Your hands move carefully, stitching a parka sleeve. The metal needles speed a thrill, but its cold bite a reminder of the Arctic's demands. Ever try a new gadget that's both cool and tricky? It's like switching to a fancy chef's knife, but missing your old chopper. You smirk, imagining a YouTube vlog titled Arctic Needle Upgrade Drama. The sewing circle's watching, some women sticking to bone, others trying metal, their chatter a mix of skepticism and curiosity. The guild had their loaf marks, but here your stitches are your own, no inspector's ledger to judge. The parka's sleeve takes shape, the metal needle's precision leaving tight, even seams. You're picturing the wearer, maybe a hunter, warm in your work. The lamps flicker, the soft scrape of sinew, it's pulling you into a sleepy rhythm, the Arctic's chill a distant memory. You're yawning, the focus and the karmic's warmth blending into a drowsy haze. But you've got to keep stitching. Parkas don't wait. The metal needle feels like a bridge between worlds, and you're already curious about what other innovations might shape your craft next. You're in the karmic, the seal oil lamp's gentle flicker casting a warm glow over the parka sleeve you're stitching. The metal needle, still warm from that quirky taming ritual, gliding through the caribou hide with a precision that's both thrilling and unfamiliar. The hum of the sewing circle, swapping tales of metal versus bone, mixes with the Arctic wind's soft howl outside, the scent of leather and sinew grounding you. Now, you're sewing elaborate ceremonial garments, outfits for Inuit celebrations that shine with artistry and meaning. It's the 1800s, and you're crafting a parka for a drum dance. Your sharp star needle back in hand for its trusted feel, the karmak's warmth a cozy haven. Historians note that Inuit ceremonial clothing worn for events like drum dances or naming ceremonies showcased seamstresses' skills, often featuring intricate patterns and rare materials to honour community and tradition. You're working on a parka adorned with seal fur trim and dyed sinew in swirling patterns, each stitch a nod to the wearer's family lineage. The elders guide you, showing how to weave white caribou hair into the cuffs for a shimmering effect, a task that demands patience. You're threading carefully, picturing the dancer moving under the aurora, your work glowing in the firelight. Here's the quirky bit. Some seamstresses sewed a tiny shell into the parka's hem, believing it carried the sea's rhythm to the dance. You're adding one now, a small iridescent shell tucked inside, feeling like you're hiding a piece of the ocean. Historians still argue whether this was a spiritual touch or just a decorative flourish. You're chuckling, picturing a modern designer posting this shell detail on Instagram with #ArcticGlamVibes. Your hands move in a delicate dance, weaving sinew and hair, the comic's lamp casting shadows that make the patterns pop. Ever try crafting something for a big event? It's like decorating a wedding cake with everyone expecting perfection. You smirk, imagining a YouTube vlog titled Ceremonial Parka Crunch Time. The sewing circle's lively, women sharing stories of past dances, their needles flashing as they work on their own ceremonial pieces. You're thinking of those Parisian bakers, bound by guild trials, and how this feels freer, tied to celebration, not coin. The parka's taking shape, its swirls and shimmer a testament to your growing skill. You're picturing the drum dance, the wearer spinning to the beat, your stitches holding strong. The guild had their bread contests, but here your work's judged by the community's awe, not a ledger. The lamps hum, the soft scrape of sinew, it's pulling you into a sleepy rhythm, the Arctic's cold fading in the karmak's glow. You're yawning, the focus and the circle's warmth blending into a drowsy haze, but you've got to keep stitching. Ceremonies demand beauty. The shell's hidden glow, the elders' chatter. It's a lullaby, and you're already curious about the legacy of this craft. You're in the karmak, the seal oil lamp's fading glow casting a soft halo over the ceremonial parka you've just finished. Its swirling patterns and that hidden shell. Your nod to the sea's rhythm shimmering faintly in the fur. The sewing circle's chatter, filled with tales of drum dances, hums quietly. The Arctic wind a gentle whisper outside, carrying the scent of snow and leather. Now, you're reflecting on the enduring legacy of Inuit seamstresses, their craft a thread tying past to present, keeping communities warm and vibrant. It's the 1800s, and you're stitching a final karmak, your sharp star needle moving with a practiced ease, the karmak's warmth a cozy embrace. Historians say Inuit sewing traditions rooted in survival and artistry have shaped Arctic culture for centuries, with techniques like those you've learned, sinew threads, whalebone stiffening, still practiced in modern Inuit communities. You're shaping the kamik's soul double-layered for strength, thinking of the countless women whose stitches held families together through brutal winters. The elders' stories, from magical parkas to traded fish charms, echo in your mind, each one a piece of a legacy that's more than just clothing. It's identity, resilience, community. You're picturing future seamstresses, maybe using metal needles, still honouring these roots. Here's the quirky bit. Some seamstresses left a single loose thread in their final garment of the season, believing it released their skill to the next generation. You're leaving one now, a tiny sinew strand dangling, feeling like you're passing a torch. Historians still argue whether this was a symbolic act or just a practical way to mark a piece's end. You're chuckling, picturing a modern Inuit artist posting this loose thread on TikTok with number sewing legacy vibes. Your hands move slowly, the kamik's fur soft under your fingers, the karmak's lamp a fading star. Ever finish a project that feels bigger than you? It's like wrapping up a novel, knowing it'll outlive your pen. You smirk, imagining a YouTube vlog titled Arctic Sewing Legacy. The circle's quiet now, women packing their needles, their work a silent promise to the future. You're thinking of those Parisian bakers, their guild fading, and how this craft feels timeless, tied to survival and spirit, not rules. The kamik's done. It seems tight, ready to carry someone through the snow. You're picturing it worn by a child, maybe with a red bead for joy. Your stitch is a small part of a larger story. The guild had their bread, but here, your work's judged by warmth and legacy, not ledgers. The lamp's hum, the soft rustle of hides, it's pulling you into a sleepy rhythm. The Arctic's chill, a distant dream. You're yawning, the weight of tradition and the karmak's warmth blending into a drowsy haze, your needle still. And now, as the lamp's glow dims, the karmak settles into a gentle hush, the scent of leather fading like a soft sigh. You lean back, the kamik resting in your lap, its fur a whisper of the tundra's vastness. The Arctic's cold, once so fierce, feels far away, replaced by the warmth of community, of stitches that hold more than hide. They hold stories, love, survival. Picture yourself now, sinking into the karmak's calm, the elders' voices a distant murmur, the snow outside falling like a quiet promise. Let the world slow. The aurora's light dance softly above, carrying you toward rest. Close your eyes, let the craft's rhythm cradle you, and drift into a dream where the seams never fray. Sleep well, seamstress, your work endures.